A cold rain slicked across the neighborhood pavement as the camera zooms in on a driveway ramp blocked by a shiny SUV, a blind man's white. Kane taps helplessly against the obstacle while the HOA president smirks from her porch. In the distance, a low rumble of a police cruiser grows louder until its red and blue lights flare across the street, promising a dramatic reckoning. That's the moment everything began to change. If you love true-life neighborhood showdowns where arrogance meets accountability, stick around. This story of an HOA president who thought she was untouchable and the family who wouldn't back down will keep you watching until the end. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss the next dramatic twist in our real-life property dramas. The neighborhood had always seemed peaceful from the outside. Tree-lined sidewalks, neat lawns, and uniform mailboxes gave an illusion of harmony, but beneath the surface, simmering tensions brewed. The HOA president, a middle-aged woman with a reputation for iron-fisted control, wielded her power like a badge. For months she had issued petty fines and mailed threatening notices to residents, each one reinforcing her dominance. My blind uncle, a retired piano tuner who valued independence, had installed a small accessibility ramp on his driveway so he could safely reach the sidewalk with his guide cane. It was approved long ago by a previous board, but the current president resented it. She saw it as an eyesore interrupting her vision of uniformity. The friction started small, snide comments at meetings, vague warnings about violations, but escalated into a deliberate act. One morning we arrived to find her SUV angled across the ramp, blocking his only safe path. She claimed it was temporary but left it there for hours. My uncle, feeling cornered and humiliated, called me. I was off duty from my job as a city police officer. The image of him stranded behind his own car, rain soaking his coat, burned into my mind. I promised myself she wouldn't get away with it. As I drove to the neighborhood that evening, the cruiser's engine felt heavier than usual. By the time my shift ended, the sky had darkened into a bruised purple. Streetlights flickered to life. My uncle stood by his porch, shoulders tense, his guide dog pacing anxiously. The SUV still sat across the ramp like a barricade. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, phones in hand, some recording. This wasn't just a parking dispute anymore. It was a display of power. I rolled the cruiser slowly down the street, keeping my expression neutral. In my chest, my heart thudded with a mix of anger and resolve. The HOA president emerged from her doorway, arms crossed, lips curled into a smirk. She believed she owned the narrative, but she underestimated the patience of the man she had cornered and the training of the nephew she had provoked. I parked at the curb, stepped out, and let the cruiser lights flash in the drizzle. The red and blue reflected off wet pavement, casting an otherworldly glow over the standoff. She stiffened slightly but held her ground. This was the turning point where her confidence began to crack. In the days that followed, the incident rippled through the community. Footage of her SUV blocking the ramp circulated on neighborhood social media groups. Outrage spread. Residents who had once feared her now whispered about organizing. The HOA board received emails demanding accountability, but she doubled down, claiming she was enforcing aesthetics and threatening fines against my uncle for improper modifications. I documented everything: timestamps, photos, witness statements. My uncle's quiet dignity fueled my determination. I met with city code compliance officers and ADA advocates. Each visit to the neighborhood in my cruiser drew more curious eyes. The flashing lights became a symbol, not of intimidation, but of a family pushing back against injustice. The president's veneer of control began to crumble. Her allies on the board grew silent. She stopped attending community events, yet the SUV still appeared across the ramp at random times. A last-ditch attempt to assert dominance. Each time it did, I showed up again, lights flashing, calmly writing citations and filing reports. Her frozen stare each time I stepped out of the cruiser told me she was beginning to realize she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. When the final confrontation came, it was almost anticlimactic. After weeks of pressure, a city inspector arrived unannounced with legal documents. Neighbors stood on their lawns, silent witnesses. The inspector read out the violations: obstruction of an ADA-compliant access point, harassment, and misuse of HOA authority. The SUV was towed on the spot. The president tried to argue, but her words faltered under the weight of evidence and public scrutiny. My uncle stood quietly beside me, his guide dog leaning against his leg. Rain began to fall again, echoing the day it all started. This time, though, the atmosphere was different, charged with relief rather than tension. The flashing lights reflected not of an act of aggression but of justice served. She retreated into her house, doors slamming behind her, the smirk gone. Over the next week, she resigned from the HOA board. New elections were held, policies were revised, and my uncle received a written apology from the association's legal counsel. The ramp remained, unobstructed, a small but powerful reminder of resilience. And that's how a simple driveway ramp became the center of a neighborhood reckoning. It's a story about how one person's arrogance can be dismantled by persistence, documentation, and community support, and how even a small act of defiance, like blocking a ramp, can spiral into a life-changing lesson. If you enjoyed watching this real-life drama unfold and want more stories where justice catches up to arrogance, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next dramatic showdown. Your support helps us keep telling these stories and shining a light on the battles fought in our own neighborhoods.